Hey guys, it's Debbie Potts, and I just wanted to do a short video on what the 8 elements are of what I call the holistic method. I created this 10 years ago, trying to explain how we need to work on not just exercise and nutrition, but your sleep and your stress and your movement throughout the day. And I'll put in breath work in there as well, and digestion and gut health, hydration, happiness are all really important to being a fit and healthy athlete. So if you're just training hard and following a schedule, if you're not getting the desired results, you may want to listen to this podcast. I've done multiple series over the last couple of years, trying to do more solo podcasts here and there on these seminars I've been giving in person, but also trying to share them here as well on the slide. So if you're watching the YouTube channel, you can see what I'm talking about or listen on any podcast audio version. So the 8 elements of the holistic method are to help you be a fit and healthy athlete from the inside out. If you want to learn how to fuel, train, and perform your best in life and sports and training for your future self, that's what I'm talking about. I turned 50. Well, now I'm 51, and I'm all about improving how I show up to life, my second half of my life. I want to be thriving every day, not struggling. I want to be kicking butt when I'm 80 years old. So that is what we should be working on now, not just what marathon you're training for, or triathlon, or cycling event, or hiking event. Work on what you can do now to improve the aging process. I am perimenopausal. I haven't gone through menopause, but I'm going to go through it eventually. And I'm kind of thinking I'm biohacking my way through there. I'm not going to have all these meltdowns that people say you have. So there's things that we can control, things that we cannot, but we can embrace the aging process and learn how to tweak and adapt things so we can improve the process. So part of that is working on nutrition and learning how to train properly and learning how to optimize your sleep, creating a sleep hygiene routine, working on improving your happiness, gratitude, laughter, playtime. So nutrition, when I'm working with people, I don't like to say keto or carnivore or paleo. It's all kind of different forms of paleo, but it's really eat real food. Get rid of the processed food, the junk food, the stuff with the 10 million ingredients on the label. Look at eating food that's from the earth, that you picked, you fished, you hunted, you dug from the ground. That is real food. So we want to look at nutrient-dense food. So that's your what. We want to eat. The how is how you eat. A lot of people eat healthy food, but they have horrible eating habits. Slow down, push pause, and reset before you start chowing down on that meal in front of you. Make sure you are sitting or at least standing and staying in place. So you want to shift into that parasympathetic nervous system before you start eating. Even if it's good nutrient dense foods, you're doing keto, you're doing carnivore, you're eating a whole foods based diet that's in season, but you have to properly eat that food. Chewing 20 times ideally is hard. I know, I'm always working on that, but being mindful and not eating mindlessly is really important. Not eating in your car, not eating while doing 10 other things. Sit, eat, focus on what you're eating. Chew your food, as I said, but taste it, the flavors. What does it do for you? Does it make you feel good? Do you feel energized after eating, or do you feel like crap? Paying attention how you feel. And then when is that intermittent fasting? Big, huge topic we've talked about the last year plus. 12 to 15 hours is plenty for athletes. If you want to put in a 24-hour fast once a month, once every couple months, do that on your rest day. Do that on your active recovery day that you're getting your walking in, that low intensity workout. And maybe you're doing a bone broth fast, I find is a little more beneficial for people than just not eating. So getting good food and gut healing protocol would be the bone broth fast. So then we look at why. Why are you eating? Did you see a commercial? Did you see something on Instagram? Are you hungry? Did you just finish working out? So you are eating in that window, but maybe you're eating too much. We tend to work out and overeat or undereat. So looking at the why. And this is why it helps to have a an assessment of someone to look at what you're eating and go through all this with you and figure out a personalized program. What to eat, I really find it's necessary to do a food sensitivity test and a Zoomer panel. I like to do Vibrant Wellness food panel, look at a wheat Zoomer, see, are you inflammatory to parts of wheat that you might not do gluten, but should you be doing wheat? Are you able to do corn and dairy? Cow dairy is inflammatory for a lot of people. How about oats that you're having? Is that inflammatory to you? So really identifying what foods might be inflammatory for you. So they're kind of, think of it as food that you're putting gasoline on the fire when you're having them. So it might be good food, but maybe not good for you. So that's why we want to individualize. Do you have an issue with too much oxalates, lectins, phytates? Do you need to do a FODMAP, low FODMAP plan? So that's where it comes into doing all the lab testing, or at least if you don't want to spend the money on lab testing, pay attention to how you feel after you eat. You can tell a lot if you pay attention to your body. It tells you when you shouldn't have something or when you had too much or you're eating that too frequently. Okay, so that's eating. And of course, I talk about Dr. Gabrielle Lyons' information. Her new book comes out sometime this year. But as athletes, and if we're doing low carb, we're doing endurance training, if you're training for a multi-sport as Ironman or ultra race, you might be doing a lot more exercise. So we want to be careful, because this is where I think I went wrong as I'm on my 10-year anniversary of my body and life changing with adrenal exhaustion. Stopped me from doing Ironmans and marathons. I was not eating enough. I was doing too much fasted workouts, and really till the last couple of years, we've been so focused on keto, eating high fat, and forgetting about protein. And now people are saying, hey, don't forget about carbs. They're not all evil. So having berries and having sweet potatoes for an athlete can be beneficial. So we want to start with your protein, figure out that as your macro base, your foundation, and then we tweak your fat based on your genetics and how you feel. Sometimes we can't tolerate that much fat. Some people genetically can't tolerate a lot of saturated fat, so we need to keep it 10%. Sometimes we have liver, gallbladder, bile flow issues, and we have poor digestive enzymes, so we need to support that breakdown of foods. But protein, we want to get, say, the 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So if you want to weigh 130 pounds, you should be striving for your higher intake of protein, that 130 grams of protein. So we want to look at muscle as the organ of longevity. We want to avoid sarcopenia as we age. We don't want to waste away that muscle from endurance exercise. And also when I'm looking at people's hormone panels, the Dutch test, I see a lot of cortisol really elevated and DHA really low. So we're in a catabolic state. High cortisol, you're breaking down your body. When you're doing excessive chronic cardio or long distance training, your cortisol is probably up. So you have to make sure you're supporting your breakdown of muscle with extra intake of protein to hit that macro goal. And then we also want to look at, of course, lifting weights 2 to 4 times a week. So you can do what Peter Duffy talks about, a reset and reboot system. He's got that on the OFM program, doing a hard reset similar to my 30-day holistic method program I used to do in groups and online for groups. I can still do it if people ask, and really help. What Endure IQ does as well as a 4 to 6 week fat adaptation process. So you're just kind of cleaning house and getting your body rid of those cravings. So a lot of people have carb cravings, sugar cravings. I can see that when I do their GI map, if they have a lot of candida, they might be craving more sugar. And so doing functional lab test assessment to figure out the why of how you feel towards certain foods is important, but also your blood chemistry test will tell us if you're high or low in different markers, but that can say, hey, that's a clue towards low B vitamins. That's a clue towards poor breakdown of protein, your malabsorption. You're not getting the nutrients you need from food. So looking at all this together, but the Reset Reboot program is really beneficial to do in your off season. So looking at protein, there's 0.55 to 0.8 grams of protein per body weight, up to what Dr. Lyon says is the 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. So how do you consume enough protein during your eating window? I've been talking a lot about, oh my gosh, I need 150 grams of protein a day. I need 20 to 40 grams at once, up to 50 grams in one meal. But how do I get that to hit, say, 150 grams of protein per day? That's hard. So I've been trying to work that out for myself and work that out for my clients. Like, all right, how much protein's in it in egg? 6 grams. How much is in a cup of bone broth? 10 grams. If I do essential amino acids as tablets, capsules from Kion, 7 capsules is 5 grams of aminos. That is equivalent, I think, if I have this right, still 10 grams of protein. So, I have to figure out, this is why I stopped doing OMAD and doing just one big meal, making sure I'm hitting my protein goals. As I'm trying to get stronger and leaner, I'm going to focus on hitting my protein goals, lifting heavy weights 4 days a week, and work on my proper digestion. Okay. So what this isn't from Dr. Lyon, but Dr. Lyon talks about this all the time. You can follow her on her social media. She always has good information, and probably coming from her new book that's coming out this year. But we want to eat that 20 to 40 grams every 3 to 4 hours. And that helps with our protein synthesis. And we want that muscle recovery and growth. And this is really important for athletes. So we want to make sure we're not doing too much fasting, especially for us endurance athletes, because of this need for hitting those protein goals. So we want strength gains. We need to eat enough. And I know it's hard to hit those protein goals. That's why I've been trying to add in essential amino acid capsules in the morning, pre-workout, post-workout, and then maybe at night just to add more in, because it's really hard to get enough in. Maybe I do a shake, 2 scoops of protein powder in there, and add my stack. So I'll do, say, maca and glutamine and colostrum, and put some mushroom adaptogens in there, and then flavor it with some unsweetened sunflower nut butter, maybe a frozen avocado to make it creamy, and then ice and water. And I think that works for me. Maybe some hemp seeds or something if you want to make it a little thicker. So working on the endurance athlete, there's some tips from Peter Defty and his OFM website. There's stuff from Endure IQ from Dr. Dan Plews. So talking about, how to improve that beta oxidation energy pathway that we need for fat burning. So having ketones as a backup fuel, you're burning carbs and ketones for your brain, or using ketones and glucose for your brain. But that's why I like taking some ketone IQ pre-workout if it's doing a little more intensity, and having those dual fuels available. Looking at, eating something beforehand for females, I'm finding is a good experiment. See, does that improve my performance? But something easy to digest, of having something as a Laird's coffee creamer that's coconut sugar sweetener, as if it's vanilla or pumpkin spice in my coffee, and it has some MCT oil in it as well. So get that protein, maybe add a little scoop of unsweetened whey protein powder that Kion has. That's another option. So Peter talks about OFM, fat adapted athletes, teaching the body to burn fat. Same with Dr. Dan Plews on ketone. Ketones aren't necessary. We're just teaching the body to burn fat oxidation. This is what Dr. Dan Plews tests in his lab. Testing you on a treadmill or a bike is something I want to start doing in San Diego here. But really, you're teaching your body to burn fat as fuel, and carbs and glucose are your backup fuel tank. We need that flexibility to burn fat or carbohydrates depending on the intensity of your workout. So we get this like carb phobic. We were fat phobic growing up. Now we're carb phobic, and just think those carbs are that backup fuel tank. But we're not saying eat crap. We're saying, time you're having a little more carbs as potatoes made maybe with bacon, fat, or grass-fed butter, and have those in your evening meal, or have those in a meal when you're doing a 2-a-day workout. So you're having those carbs strategically placed in the day. But we need that flexibility, and you need to have ability to metabolize carbohydrates just as much as you need to burn fat for fuel. So we want to say not all carbs are evil. So we want to work on getting our metabolism working. And you can see this all in the slides. All this is their ebooks on my website. So you can head to DebbiePotts.net and just grab what this is saying on strategic carb timing. So talking about nutrition for the athlete. Not all carbs are equal and they're not all evil. So I should say it that way. Okay, now I lost my spot. I can't change my screen. So next, carbohydrate tolerance. We've talked a lot about that in other episodes. Doing a test, figure out what carbs are good for you, when to place them if you're doing a higher intensity workout. I don't think you need to add them in when you're doing a low intensity workout, zone 1, 2. I can get up and go and do that. I don't need to add carbs, but when I'm experimenting with maybe eating a half a bar when I'm doing a high intensity bike workout or run workout or swim workout. So I get layered bars. I got a Keon whey protein bar that are kind of equal in carbs, fat, protein, easy to digest. I can take a half a bar, not eat the whole thing because I can't eat before workouts, but add a little bit of something in the tank and see if that helps my performance. So for bike class, for example, I can tell if your power meter workout, if it's based on your FTP, if you hit those numbers, it's doing something, right? We also want to look at stress, as I'm on my 10-year anniversary of when my life changed, that I wrote about in my book, Life is Not a Race, that you need to look at how you're showing up to life each day. And when I do people's Dutch test, a lot of people have really elevated cortisol off the chart or really low. And some people are just kind of in between those phases of being acute phase of high cortisol function to transitioning into your compensatory phase where your cortisol level is below normal. So it's that Goldilocks effect for everything. Not too high, not too low. The right amount to have that optimal high level, highest of the day in the morning of cortisol and then lowest at night in opposition to melatonin. So chronic stress is really important. So it comes down to fueling, and Dr. Stacy Sims talks about this for the female athletes, that we have as females a lot of stress. Some people, I think myself, genetically are more prone to stress. We maybe not handle it as well as other people. So we want to make sure we're not stressing our body by not eating enough during the day or pre-workout. So what Dr. Stacy Sims says, and everyone's got different opinions, I know I hear both sides of it, but it doesn't matter if you're a strength athlete, endurance athlete, team sport, you need to fuel for the training stress. So the stress of our workout. We don't train and get fit during the training. What happens during the training is we're breaking everything down and your body's under incredible load of stress. If you're also adding in non-fueling or poor fueling stress on top of that, it's above and beyond the stress needed for exercise adaptation. So that's her argument against women in fasted exercise, that we need to train differently. So I say, all right, I'm going to add a little bit of calories in my coffee, make it taste yummy instead of having a boring black coffee. Hooray, that's good for me. I can get my calories in and not be stressing my body. So that's my solution. I feel good. So it's working for me, but do what works best for you. Okay, so N equals 1. See, okay, if I'm doing a low heart rate workout in the morning, I wake up and go, maybe a cup of coffee, maybe just water, some sea salt, some element unsweetened. I can do that. Maybe some Keon aminos. I'll take 7 capsules. I don't do the drink mix because it's too sweet for me with the stevia. I don't do well with stevia. So experimenting. What type of workout you're doing, what intensity that is, what duration is it? When did you last eat dinner or your last meal? For me, it depends, because sometimes I stop eating at 3:30. Today, I finished eating my lunch and I'm usually full for the rest of the day. If I get hungry, I'm trying to not to be so stuck on, oh, that's my fasting window, I can't eat. But if I'm hungry, have a little something. It's just not overeating, especially before bed. Best not to eat 3 hours before bed. But if you're hungry, have a little something. If it's a spoonful of sunflower butter or a spoonful of the keto nuts butter, something like that that's easy to digest. I won't spike your glucose, but gives you a little fuel to tie you over the night. So experiment. We are all different. There isn't one size all. I'm not going to tell you all to do the same program. So we want to look at research-based science. So I like listening to Huberman Lat Massier at HVMN's done a lot of science-based episodes on his podcast talking about metabolism. We want to look at Jay Feldman's done information on fat metabolism versus carb metabolism. It's more the why you have problems metabolizing carbohydrates. Maybe you are too intolerant to carb metabolism because you've been so strict on just eating fat and protein. So you need that metabolic flexibility. So we need to teach a body to burn stored fat as fuel. But if we get so one end or the other, we need to have flexibility and variation in everything we talk about. So think if you've been doing keto for a long time, like I have, doing low carb, I am okay to add in some berries or have an apple with a nut butter, or some cheese or some walnuts with it. Think about how you feel. So it's avoiding the bad fats is more important. Those are the inflammatory fats. So if we look at Dr. Kate Shanahan's research, good fats versus bad fats, that will help you out too. Make sure you're not eating that processed packaged food. If it says gluten-free, well, what are the oils in it? If it's a package, it's going to have some crap in it. So that's why it's best to make your own food from scratch, not get the stuff out of a box or from Costco or from the grocery store that's already pre-made. Look at what this graph is if you're watching the video. Good fats in the green, yellow, not so great, but okay, limit use on here. And then red, bad fats don't eat. So the bad fats are soy oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, canola oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, hydrogenated oil, refined palm oil. And she said mostly in restaurants, you're going to find the grapeseed oil, which is processed into canola oil, and the rice bran oil. So you have to look at the fake whipped cream, the fake butter spreads, the store-bought pastries, chicken nuggets, margarines, shortening, refried foods, fried foods, chips and crackers, protein bars, salad dressings, granola, and cereal all can have these bad inflammatory oils. So as athletes, we should be more focused on anti-inflammatory that is going to hinder our performance in life and sports today and our future self. So that's more of the red flag is, are you getting those vegetable oils in there? So going back to training as a low carb athlete, metabolic flexibility, you want to go back to that original conversation we had. We want to burn fat as our main fuel tank because we have, say, 40,000 of stored calories there. And then our backup fuel tank is limited. Those carb storage, say we have 2,000 stored carb storage tank in our liver that we save. We don't go to that unless we're really low in our muscle glycogen stores. So I really want to have that metabolic flexibility to use carbs as fuel when we really need them. We're designed to go for long periods without food and use fat as fuel, fast or your feast, but we need to have some fuel. And a lot of us are not eating enough because we're so type A driven ambitious that we take this information and go to extreme. And all the stuff I read about in our group forums, men's comments and experiences are not going to be the same for the female experience when they're doing fasted exercise, going for bike rides, not eating anything for 3 hours. Some of you may feel good, but I feel good, but my thyroid's low, my cortisol is still low. So I need to honor that and say, maybe my body does need a little something in the middle of a long bike ride, for example, having a bar 2 hours into it, not feel guilty and ashamed of, oh, I'm eating something. I think we have to honor what your body's saying, what you're needing, and notice that, hey, I'm faster, I'm stronger, I'm hitting a faster power output, and I'm feeling good, and my recovery is improving by eating some good quality food that will help my performance and my recovery. So I think we get too serious on everything. So test, not guess, metabolic testing. If you can know, okay, where is my best heart rate to burn primarily fat? And know that you're always burning some carbohydrates when we're training. So I know when I'm running, I'm burning probably a lot more carbohydrates than I would biking. We're burning fat a higher rate, fat oxidation rate, the more you get fat adapted, so to speak, athlete. You're training low, you're burning more fat, a higher percentage, the more you train that way. But you're not burning 0% carbs. You still are burning some carbohydrates. So that's what even Dr. Dan Plews and S Fuels, they're talking about. Don't have your carbs before workout, but once you start exercising, you can place those carbohydrates in your fuel plan if you're doing a harder workout, because you have those GLUT4 transporters. So when your glucose levels go up, once you start exercising, the motor starts running, you get those carbs, the glucose shuttled to your muscles to be used as fuel, right? So if we're not exercising, we don't have GLUT transporters, we're having insulin spike up to shuttle the excess glucose into the cells. So that's where I think it's important to time the carbs when you are exercising, not necessarily before. But that's different. Everyone's going to say, have some carbs and protein before workout. And then some people say don't. So, listen to Dr. Andy Kaplan on Huberman Lab, listen to Stacy Sims. Everyone's got some different information. Also, Laird and Gabby have the program. I'm going to forget the name again, but Dr. Andy Kaplan's an advisor on their board, and they did an Instagram video on fueling, and they were saying protein, carbs, like a 1-to-1 ratio pre-workout. But I think that means when you're doing a higher intensity workout. Okay, so just to review, all this on the website, N=1. If you want to get fat adapted, you've passed that phase. We talked about Dan Plew's program a few episodes. And then you might do a cyclical keto diet or targeted keto diet that you're alternating. Maybe you're doing more carbs at night. Maybe one day a week you're doing a non-keto day. But the carbs are more like sweet potatoes, winter squash, legumes, whole grains I don't do, but looking at the refeed, having more nature's carbs, below the ground type of vegetables might be best for you. Maybe some berries. Maybe for me, I've been enjoying an apple and feeling good from it, getting that fiber. So decreasing that carb dependence, if you are coming from eating a high carb diet, it's going to be different than if you've been doing nutritional ketosis and doing a really low carb food plan for a long time. Is going to be different depending who I'm talking to. So we want to look at improving your fat oxidation rates and being able to have some carbs and use them as fuel so you can go faster when you're doing a higher intensity workout. So check out EndureIQ. They've got lots of information and programs on there. But basically on this page, I'm just talking about too much carb intake can cause GI stress, fructose intolerance, overconsumption of carbohydrates, gut inflammation, all can be a problem when you're having too many carbs during your workout. So even during the day, when you're eating foods, the standard American diet, people can eat too many carbs at once. So we want to not go over in a workout 60 grams per hour. But I can't remember, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon in one of her posts said, don't have more than 40, 50, 60 grams of carbohydrates at once. So if you're eating a meal that's high carb, well, don't go over, say, 50 grams in one sitting. So something to think about when you're having your carb refeed, that you're not overdoing it either. So we want to increase our fat burning rate. Lots of information from EndureIQ. We want to look at the Goldilocks effect. Thomas DeLauer had a great series of blogs or videos that he does on fasting too much, or you're fasting too little. What's the right amount for you? So there's zones that he talked about, 5 zones, and finding your hormetic stress. That Goldilocks effect, again, how much fasted exercise is too much, and really looking at, are you breaking down? Or are you building up? Are you getting faster? Are you getting stronger? Or are you getting slower? Are you sluggish? You're not hitting those numbers anymore. You're not getting good, quick recovery. Perhaps you are not losing any weight. You're not sleeping well. So we need to look at all the lifestyle elements, as well as when you're eating, why you're eating, and how. Why is a big part. So the fasting zones, you can check out Thomas DeLauer's episode he did on fasting too much or not. He created these 5 zones for fasting. I think, as I said earlier, doing a longer fast once a month is good for athletes on your rest day. Don't do your exercise. But that's what I think is probably a good amount, as he talks about here. For example, zone 3, a peak fasting benefits 20 hours or more, 6 to 10 times a month seems like a sweet spot. But I don't think for athletes that might be a little much. So maybe you're doing say on Sunday's your rest day, you're doing that day is your longer fast. Monday, for me, I do a little bit longer fast because it's usually my active recovery day. And I stop eating on Sundays, usually at 3, so I can go until 11 a.m. But I still have my coffee, maybe some mushroom adaptogens in there and cream, and I'm good. But I think this is that fine line when we take everything too seriously and don't do our own intuitive fueling, intuitive fasting. So listen to your body, vary things up. Everything you'll read about, what do I see a pattern, variation. So don't fast the same way every day. Don't exercise the same way every week. Don't exercise the same way all month long. Maybe you need variation, especially females cycling. We want to match with your hormones. Your workouts should change each week based on your hormone cycle. Men, maybe you vary it once a month. So we want to look at fasting. Maybe I'm doing 12 to 15 hours. Maybe this day on my rest day, I'm doing a 24-hour. Women, you can look at Dr. Mindy Pell's matching that fasting window with your hormones. Again, certain days of the month, you might go 17 hours. And then if you have adrenal fatigue, there's guidelines in her book, Fasting Like a Girl, for adrenal fatigue, autoimmune, low thyroid. So they have fasting protocols for you, the non-athlete, in that book. Regular exercise, but I think we're talking about us who are working out once or more a day. Okay. So flexing, cycling, variation is key to everything. Tracking your heart rate variability, noticing if it drops, looking at your sleep scores, your deep sleep, REM scores, really testing and not guessing. Look at your glucose. I'm finding people's blood sugar levels going way too low, and then they'll have weird spikes. So really learning about your individuality. Okay. So we're not all the same. Once again, mix it up. Dr. Anna talks about in her book, menu pause. When is it a good time to switch from a strict carnivore 1 week to 30 days? Maybe you're going to a keto green program. Maybe then you're thinking, oh, I need to do a detox week, or I'm going to do a carb refeed. Maybe that's day 20 of your menstrual cycle for female athletes. So really matching your food plan with your training program, so helpful to really get results, dialing it in, looking at these biometrics, doing something with all this data that you're collecting, really learning and growing and improving from it. So personalized nutrition, look at your genetics, look at your stress, your HRV numbers, your lifestyle habits, how you're showing up to life, how you're breathing, how your exercise schedule is. Are you doing too much cardio and not enough strength training? I see a lot of people are not doing strength training. I have to add that into everyone's program because they're just doing running, or they're just doing biking, or they're just doing triathlon training. You have to get the strength training in, even if it's 10 minutes. Just set up push-ups, squats, lunges, and planks. Really, it doesn't take that much time. Test your glucose or your ketones and respiratory RQ value. That's something you do with a face mask, and we measure oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. Okay, so getting information, that circadian rhythm, restricted feeding, does it help? Do athletes need to do this? I don't know. Look at Rob Wolf, has great information. You are taking care of yourself with your exercise and getting good nutrient-dense food, getting coffee, all these things can help with our cell autophagy. So another topic, but training your body, fat adapted, when to add in nature's carbs, when to work on adding more minerals to your water, how to train, how to match your nutrition with your race pace, or you're doing low heart rate. That's so important. We need to take care of our digestion, our gut health. That's really important. So I'm talking about this all the time on the podcast. Test your GI map or Genova Diagnostics. Do your Dutch test. Do your HTMA, hair tissue mineral test. All this really helps. So you can find more information. Peter Defty's on the OFM program, Optimal Fat Metabolism. You can look at Dr. Dan Plews on the Endure IQ program website, and me, debbiepotts.net. And if you want to learn how to fuel, train, and perform your best, I do it a little more in depth because I do functional lab testing, genetics, the hair tissue mineral test, the Dutch test, GI test, all of it costs money, but it does help to really know what you should be doing based on what's going on, your hidden internal sources of stress. So really looking at the whole you from the inside out to improve your performance. Remember, it's not a one size fits all approach. We want to look at all this data. So looking at, what you can do to be the best you. Okay. So then we'll go into Goldilocks effect, strength training, when to do fasted exercise, doing the low intensity workout, going for a nature walk. First thing in the morning, you want to get up, you want to get that sunshine. When to do cold therapy, morning or night, probably in the morning because it wakes you up. So looking at all of this information is in my website ebook section. So go into all of that, so much more to dive into. So we'll leave it there and we'll talk to you next time. So let me know what your questions are so we can tackle them on the next episode. See you soon.